bilingual. And you've got Beto O'Rourke, the guy who's going to bring us together, lead us through this dark time. It's time to bring him out here, folks. But before we do that, we just have one more thing to do, okay? We got to make a little noise. And we have to do it in a way, we've got to, not that noise. We have to do it in a way that corrects all those mispronunciations of Beto's name, right? And so you've heard people say Beto, and remember Ted Cruz used to deliberately mess it up. He'd say Beto.
Raphael.
But you know how it goes, so I want you to start saying it with me and keep it going. Beto. 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 Ladies and gentlemen, the next President of the United States.
San Francisco! Oh my gosh! It is so great to be back here. I'm sorry that we're a little bit late. Our plane out on the tarmac for 30 or 40 minutes. All I could think of was high-speed rail. Jared Huffman, he's on his way out to another town hall with his wife Susan. Jared, thank you for the introduction. Let's hear it. Jared told you that we were roommates. What he did not tell you was that he was my landlord. Truth, for 3 years, I and Sloat, another member of Congress, lived with Jared in a small townhouse that he and Susan owned. He did not raise my rent one of those 3 years, so he's a good landlord. Affordable housing for their works. We had to share this tiny, small bathroom that was about 1/8 the size of this stage, which for 3 guys is gross, but when 3 guys with their families are all in town at the same time, was really challenging physics and biology. But an amazing guy, taught me so much on environmental issues, on climate issues, on issues of water in the United States of America, so important here in California, but so important everywhere. Traveling the state of Texas, 50 water systems where you cannot drink the water, where it's not safe to turn on the faucet and drink what comes out of it. But it's all over this country. It was just in New Hampshire. There are places where you cannot drink because of PFAS, this chemical that comes off of the non-stick pans that they've been washing into their waterways, that make it impossible for some there to be able to drink the water. I was in Denmark, South Carolina, not too far from Sweden and Norway, South Carolina. Truth, the Vikings invaded at some point, we don't know when. But in Denmark, you cannot drink the water. They've been treating the water system there with something akin to a pool cleaner. And it's going to cost them about $15 million to clean up that system, to put new water infrastructure in place. The property tax base in Denmark, South Carolina cannot pay for it. They're going to need some federal help. We need leadership like Jared Huffman, like all of us standing up for everyone, so that every single person, whether in Denmark or Flint, Michigan, or El Paso, Texas, or San Francisco, California, can trust the water, can trust the air that we breathe, can trust the soil in which we grow our food to feed and sustain and to clothe us. And Jared Huffman is a leader on that. So Jared, thank you for everything that you're doing. Wherever you are right now. Jamie, our volunteer coordinator who keeps us off, thank you for your kind words, for organizing us today. To the Irish Cultural Center, thank you for welcoming us in your home. We're grateful. And San Francisco, I gotta tell you, I've been here before, and I see some friends from El Chuco in the back wearing the Diablo shirts. This is beautiful. You know, our hometown, beautiful as well, just a different kind of beautiful. We're in the Chihuahuan Desert at 4,000 feet in the Rocky Mountains next to the Rio Grande River. It's gorgeous, and this is gorgeous too, just a lot greener than where we are at home. And so much good has come out of San Francisco in my head as I was driving from the airport. There was this battle going on between Don't Stop Believin' by Journey and Master of Puppets by Metallica. The entire way. We're going to have to work on that mashup of a song. Thank you for welcoming us and for being here and for taking some time out of your Sunday to welcome a stranger, in some cases, Emra, a friend. We've seen you before, and you were there for us in that Senate race in Texas. So many of you contributed, phoned, drove down to Texas, knocked on doors, really helped to do something very special in our home state. And just know this, I am forever grateful for that, and forever grateful for this. And forever grateful for the fact that all of us are here, not because of a person, or a candidate, or a political party. We're here for this country that we love so much, that faces the greatest challenges that we have seen in our lifetimes. Let's think about this. Millones que no pueden obtener salud, o cuidado de salud, o ver un doctor, millones más que viven bajo la sombra de deportación a un país que no conocen, millones más que necesitan 2 o 3 trabajos para sobrevivir. In this country right now, we have a crisis in our economy, too low for too few, and not well enough for too many. We have a country where tens of millions cannot see a doctor or afford medication or take their child to the therapist so that she's well enough to learn in school tomorrow. We have a country that threatens to send more than 1 million dreamers back to a country they do not know, whose language they do not speak, where they do not have family, and where they're successful against those long odds. They'll be successful for that place. Not here in San Francisco, not in California, not the United States of America. You have to ask yourself how we got to this point. The wealthiest, the most powerful country on the face of the planet, that purports to host the greatest democracy the world or history has ever known. How did we allow this to happen? How will 30,000 of our fellow Americans lose their lives to gun violence this year? A number that you see in no other country on the face of the planet. Why do we incarcerate 2.3 million of our fellow Americans, disproportionately comprised of people of color? Far too many there for a non-violent drug crime, including possession of marijuana, a substance that is legal or decriminalized or medicinalized in most states in the Union. And yet you can be stopped, frisked, arrested, locked up, upon release forced to check a box on every employment application form, saying that you have that conviction, making it less likely that you get that job or qualify for a student loan so that you can improve yourself through higher education. How in the world did we come to this point? We're not inherently evil or bad or murderous or violent or unkind or cruel. We are a great people, born and intended to do great things. But what I have failed to confront in my life, and I think I'm only realizing now fully in this presidential administration, is that there is an inertia to power. Those who hold it and want to keep it and accumulate more of it. Explain to me otherwise how at a time of $21 trillion in debt, $4 trillion in outstanding infrastructure needs, every other concern that I just raised, our response to that is a $2 trillion tax break that goes to corporations that are already sitting on record piles of cash, and the already wealthiest in this country at a time of historic wealth and income inequality. The people of the future, I hope, will not be able to believe that that happened. How is it that we allow members of Congress to choose their voters? We allow money to buy influence and increasingly outcomes in our elections, in our legislation. A Supreme Court in 2010 that decided that corporations are people, money is speech, and corporations can spend unlimited amounts of money to purchase the outcomes of our elections, to define the policies that are at odds with our lives, but that help their bottom lines. The answer to this, I'm convinced, is democracy that works for all of us, and democracy that is not just limited to political democracy, but true economic democracy. So, my home state of Texas. Yes, thank you. Before 2018, before your help, we ranked 50th in the country in voter turnout. Now, that is not because we love our democracy any less than you do here in California or any of the other 49 states in the Union. It is because we were literally drawn that way. Our state legislature drew people out based on their race and ethnicity from a given congressional district to diminish the power of their vote and to silence their voices. When you exacerbate that with racist voter ID laws that say that you can use your license to carry a firearm to prove who you are at the ballot box, but you cannot use your student ID at El Paso Community College to prove who you are at the ballot box, the result is predictable. And the policies that follow, a state that did not expand Medicaid, though the federal government was going to spend 100 cents on the dollar to do that, the working poor, 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet, but don't earn enough to be able to pay for the medications that could save and extend their lives. We begin to understand how power is concentrated and how it is affected and come at the price of the powerless. So in this country, especially in states like mine of the former Confederacy, we need a new Voting Rights Act so that every single person counts in this country. We need same-day voter registration so when you're ready to vote, automatic voter registration. You turn 18, you are ready to vote. Your vote is effective. An end to all gerrymandering in the United States of America. And getting political action committees, independent expenditures, and dark, unaccountable big money out of our politics once and for all. If we do this, and if we complement it with true economic democracy, if we accept that one job should be enough, and we fight and win $15 an hour for every American as before, if we complement that with paid family leave, so that no one gets fired or loses their income for taking care of themselves or their kids or their folks, if we make sure that there is equality in the workplace in Texas, check this out, you can be fired for your sexual orientation. In Texas, though there are 30,000 kids in the foster care system, a system so underfunded and understaffed that those children were sleeping on the desks at Child Protection Services offices. But in our state, by law, you can be too gay to be able to adopt one of those kids. We need to sign into law the Equality Act so that the civil rights of every single American are protected. In the United States, where women are paid 80 cents on the dollar for what men are paid, where African American women are paid 61 cents on the dollar, and Latinas 53 cents for what men are paid on the dollar. We need an equal rights amendment ratified by the majority of the states in this union to ensure that by our Constitution, women can never be discriminated against on any basis, including pay in the workplace. When we are willing to do that, when we have full economic and political democracy in this country, we will call forth the genius of every single one of our fellow Americans. And every single one of those challenges that I described at the outset, we can meet them. Not as Democrats, not as Republicans, not as folks from big cities or small towns, but just all of us, Americans. No me importa su raza, su género. I don't care to whom you pray or who you love, how many generations you've been in this country, or whether you just got here this morning. All that matters to me is that we are Americans first. We have these challenges before us, and we will overcome them. I want you to be well enough to to live to your full potential, to go to school the next day, to work a job, to shoulder your fair share of the load so that it rests a little bit lighter on everybody else's shoulders. I want you to be able to start a punk rock band and tour the country, if that's what you were put on the planet to do. I want you to be able to raise your family. I want you to fulfill your promise in whatever way that means, but I want you to be well enough to be able to do that in this country. In the year 2019, there are still people dying of diabetes, of the flu, of curable cancers. Insulin invented in 1922, sold to the government of Canada for $3, $3 Canadian at that, with no prospect for profit, because those scientists wanted to save the lives of their fellow human beings. And you now have people crowdfunding their insulin treatment, rationing their care, and dying prematurely or leading diminished lives. This country, should it so choose, can be up to that challenge. We can also confront the fact that in so many states throughout this country, including in Texas, the largest provider of mental health care services is the county jail system. In fact, the largest inpatient mental health care facility in a state of 28 million, my home state, is the Harris County Jail. Folks with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, clinical depression, literally getting locked up on purpose. Not that they should, but they feel that they must, in order to get care and treatment and a prescription to a psychotropic medication that will temporarily make life bearable for them at a cost on average of $110 a night. Losing out on whatever they would be able to do in their lives, were they well enough to do it, losing out on what we pay in, and losing out on the knowledge that for a fraction of the cost, we can provide consistent, high-quality mental health care. So when we talk about universal care in this country, guaranteed and high quality, let's make sure that means access to a primary care provider, a mental health care provider, and in a country that is in the midst of a maternal mortality crisis 3 times as deadly for women of color, in a country throughout the United States that is closing choices to women, making it harder not only to obtain a legal abortion, but a cervical cancer screening, to see a family planning provider, to see a doctor or provider of any kind. That when we say universal health care, we also mean every woman's ability to make her own decisions about her own body. That's what we've got to be talking about. And that's what we've got to do. When we see families arrive on our border, on our front door, in this land of immigrants and asylum seekers and refugees from the world over, given where we are, we might recall the Irish in the 19th century, the O'Rourke's among them, fleeing famine, no place to go, at a time that had claimed the lives of more than 1 million people in that country. And this was the one place that took them in. Vietnamese in the 1970s. People from every part of this planet, from Asia, from Africa, from the Western Hemisphere today, people traveling 2,000 miles from the deadliest countries on the face of the planet right now, El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala, doing what you would do, doing what I would do if it were the only way to save the life of my child. Making that journey on foot, riding atop a train known as La Bestia, the beast, and coming here, penniless, afraid, strangers in a strange land, and the way that we chose to meet them. Though this was a decision of one man, of one party, in this democracy, where the people are the government, and the government is the people, we can take no comfort in that. It is on every single one of us. When we deport that mother back to the country from which she fled, lock that child up in a cage, turn that kid over to Health and Human Services, the Office of Refugee Resettlement, a foster care home in God literally only knows where, visiting a cruelty and a torture on that child, the scars of which they still show even when they are reunited, and we have been there. in El Paso, Texas, at Annunciation House, where after months, an 8-year-old girl is reunited with her mom after that separation. And unlike Henry, my 8-year-old, when I come back from being on the road, big goofy smile on his face, and impatience to tell me what he's done, the friends that he's met, the movies that he's watched. On that girl's face, there was absolutely nothing. A vacant expression, and I would only guess that she associates all over again. That is what we are doing in this country right now. On the day that we announced our campaign in El Paso, 3 blocks south from where I am, where we were, near the Paso del Norte Bridge, our president had kept behind concertina wire and chain link fence entire families underneath a bridge, living in the dirt. In this country, with such great capacity and resources, and a tradition of welcoming people from the world over, who made this the greatest place on the planet, bar none, the world over. So up to us to meet this challenge now, lest it define us forever. Begin by ensuring that never again is another child taken from another mother or father at our border. That we pay any price, bear any expense to reunite those families who have been separated. And then for those dreamers, more than 1 million strong, forever free them from any fear of deportation by making them U.S. citizens in this country. Do not do it at the price of deporting their parents, or millions more working the toughest jobs. Bring them out of the shadows. Give them a chance to contribute even more to our shared success. We do not need a 2,000-mile, 30-foot-high, $30 billion wall. We need to be good to one another, treat each other with decency and respect and dignity. Así podemos asegurar nuestras comunidades y este país. No necesitamos muros. We can literally rewrite this country's immigration laws in our own image to reflect us, those who are here right now, understanding that our future is premised on our ability to accept and integrate those who chose us, who left their home, their family, their language, their culture, to start again here, to do better for themselves and their kids, but to do better for us, and they have. We can do that, and I know that that defies partisanship. I know that that defies geography. I know that that defies the differences between us now. And then this, the mother of all challenges, which you are too well aware of. 1 degree Celsius just since 1980 is how much this planet has warmed, and it is cooking still right now, on track to warm another 3 or 4 degrees Celsius. If you think 400,000 apprehensions at our southern border last year was a problem, wait until some countries in the Western Hemisphere can no longer support human life, then we might have a problem. For 2 weeks, the people of this community were wearing masks on their face last year because of the smoke that came here from wildfires that raged at historic levels. For as long as we've been keeping records in California and North America, these fires defied every single one of those records. Just like back home in Texas, 58 inches of rain fell from the sky, landed on Houston, Texas, washed people out of their homes, out of their very lives. The third 500-year flood in just the last 5 years. We were just in Iowa, where the Missouri flooded its banks, the greatest runoff into the Missouri River Basin for as long as we've been keeping records. 4 times the normal runoff. Droughts in the Panhandle, where we attempt to grow the food that feeds us and so much of the rest of the world. This is not caused by God or Mother Nature. It is our own excesses, our own emissions, and our own inaction in the face of the facts and the science and the truth. And so it is on us, every single one of us, to make this right, to free ourselves from dependence on fossil fuels, to transition to solar and wind and geothermal and renewable energies, to allow our rural communities to do their part, meaning that farmers, let's give them a chance through the Farm Bill to plant cover crops, to pull more of that carbon out of the air, open up new technologies like precision tilling that disturbs less of the carbon that's in the soil. And the next president must, in addition, y además de rejoining the Paris Climate Agreements, the Kigali protocols, we've got to make sure that the example of our leadership extends beyond that. Every single purchasing decision, leasing decision that the federal government makes should include the cost of pollution and the cost to our climate. No more leases on federal lands for oil and gas drilling. And let's make sure that those leases that are in force right now are changed to reflect the true cost and the royalties that are paid. And then, just maybe, we can take our role as the indispensable nation, convene the powers of the planet, bring them together to do the otherwise impossible, and save not just this generation, but every generation that comes. These challenges, these opportunities cannot be met by half measure, by only half the country. It's going to take all of us, and this is our moment to decide how we will be defined. Are we going to define ourselves by kids in cages, by withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreements, by calling Nazis and Klansmen very fine people? No, we're not going to be defined by our smallness, our pettiness, our hatred, or our racism. Instead, we will be known by our ambitions, our aspirations, the work, the service, and sacrifice we are willing to bring to bear to get them done. I'm here to tell you that I'm running to serve you as the next president of the United States of America. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. All right. So, I have no hope of effectively serving you as your nominee or as your president. I have not had the chance to first listen to you. Cynthia Cano right here has got a microphone. If you can get her attention, she'll do her best to bring the microphone to you. And I'll listen to your questions, your comments, your suggestions, your constructive criticism. Yes.
Beto, bienvenido a San Francisco.
Gracias.
Mi nombre es Cecilia, soy originaria de El Salvador, 45 años en Estados Unidos, 45 years in the United States.
Now, enroll them in Medicare immediately. Secondly, if you have insubstantial care, cannot afford your premiums, your co-pays, the size of your deductible, you can elect to move over to Medicare, and we will make sure that you can do that. If you have employer-sponsored insurance that you like, if you're a member of a union, and I just talked to the culinary workers in Las Vegas, and you like that employer-sponsored plan, and you choose to keep that because it works for you and your family, you're able to do that. I think from a number of different perspectives, that is the surest, quickest way for us to get to universal, guaranteed, high-quality care for everybody. So, thank you for asking the question. I appreciate it.
Right behind you, in here in front. Hello, my name is Holly Norman. I live right here in San Francisco. And first of all, I want to thank you for that Senate run. That was a blast to watch. That was so much fun. So I'm only interested in three things in this election. The first one is getting the youth out to vote. I want to see an 80% turnout of 18 to 49%. And I don't care who gets that. I think that's the number one important thing. Voting record and progressive. Voting record like San Francisco progressive as opposed to Texas progressive, because those terms are loaded with a lot of assumptions. And just the whole voting, just getting behind the whole voting rights thing, this is just we want to be a democracy. This is a disgrace. It's an embarrassment. And it's been bad for a while. I think I'm a boomer and I feel horrible that I let my own good fortune not kind of fall asleep to the needs and let we get to this point. The student debt is just, that's absurd. So anything you can address on that, thank you, Beto.
Thank you very much. So let me address this issue of turnout and define the legacy of segregation and Jim Crow and racism and voter suppression that is alive and well in our democracy today. I talked about Texas. Texas was 50th on purpose, designed that way. They got exactly what they wrote. In our race that so many of you helped us with in Texas, we went to each of the 254 counties. We talked about the issues that you just raised. We talked about gun violence, and we talked about the solution. Universal background checks and stop selling weapons of war into our communities. AR-15s, machines designed to kill people effectively, efficiently, and in great numbers, should no longer be sold into American communities. Keep in mind the battlefield. We talk about universal health care. We talk about a maternal mortality crisis that was especially deadly in Texas, and about how Planned Parenthood and reproductive choice is part of the solution to that challenge. And I would say in the reddest places on the planet that you can see glowing from outer space when you're orbiting the Earth, I would say in the big cities, because it's just true. And here's part of the result. Again, thank you for the help in doing this. Young voter turnout in Texas up 500%. 500%. We didn't trim our sails. We didn't compromise our values. We showed up with the courage of our convictions. And I tell you what, it worked not just with Democrats, not just independents. This is the first time in 10 years that a statewide Democrat won independent votes. We also won 500,000 Republican votes who voted for Greg Abbott, a very Tea Party, conservative Republican governor, and voted for us on the same ballot. So I have to think that these issues are universal. Protecting the lives in our lives through ending gun violence, making sure everybody's well enough to live to their full potential, reproductive freedoms, and following the law of the land set in 1973, Roe versus Wade. What I hope to be able to tell you is that though we didn't win the race, we lost by 2.6% for those of you who were counting. And we were counting that night. All of us together not only increased turnout to record levels, not just put 38 electoral college votes in play in 2020, but además, in addition, we helped to flip the House of Representatives. 2 new members of Congress from Texas, Democrats holding seats in long held Republican districts, changed the composition of the state legislature, and in Harris County, home to Houston, Texas, 17 African-American women won judicial elections, literally changing the face of criminal justice in the largest city in Texas, the most diverse city in the United States of America. I'm telling you that we can run on this proud progressive agenda everywhere in the United States of America. Unite people instead of dividing them. Ensure that everyone sees a future for themselves in the future of this country. Thank you for the question. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Emily. I live in San Francisco. Thank you for coming. My question is about climate change and transitioning our economy off of fossil fuels. So in 2015, President Obama blocked the Keystone XL pipeline, citing climate as the reason, and Trump reversed that decision, but the pipeline hasn't been built. So if given the opportunity, as president, would you stand with indigenous peoples and block the Keystone XL tar sands?
The answer is yes. Let's stand with local stakeholders, let's stand with indigenous communities, and let's stand with the people of the future. Our kids and our grandkids are going to inherit the choices that we make today. So thank you for standing up and doing that. Appreciate it.
Hey, Beto! I was smart enough, my name is Kristen Marie Lynch Ayala, and I was smart enough to marry a boy from El Paso.
How's it working out for you?
Oh my God, he's awesome. We have a baby and he's asleep. Can you imagine? There he is, look. He was El Paso Lion. Anyway, Taco Tote or Chico's Tacos?
So if there is no alcohol in the system, it's Taco Tote. The only way to digest Chicos is with a couple of beers.
Thank you. We're so happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. I appreciate it. Grateful.
We have a question from our overflow. We have a group of folks that couldn't get in. So here's our overflow question.
Hi, thanks so much for being here. I have a question that has to do with one of the reasons why voters are so disaffected is because of all the money in politics. And I know that your campaign is corporate free, is that correct?
Yeah, PAC-free completely. Lobbyist-free as
Position
well.
on clean elections, public financing elections?
Yeah. I think it makes a ton of sense. There are some colleagues with whom I served who had been there not 10 years, not 20 years, not 30 years, not 40 years, but over 50 years. One person representing 750,000 people in the House of Representatives, one face, one mind, one set of life experiences in one of the most diverse democracies on the face of the planet. And it's not just because we do not have term limits, which I support. It's not just that members of Congress choose their own districts, which they do. We need to end gerrymandering. It is because they can leverage contributions from those corporations who do business before their committees of jurisdiction. And it helps to explain results that are otherwise inexplicable. In 2017, your Congress passed a bill signed into law by this president that allows internet service providers to take your private browsing data and sell it to the highest bidder without your consent. Now, if you think about the weirdest, funkiest, strangest places you've been online over the course of your lifetime, and now know that that can be sold to anybody without your permission, how in the world does that accord with your interests? It doesn't. But if you follow the money, these political action committee contributions, it also helps to explain why we have the highest drug prices in the world, though you and I as taxpayers paid for the research and development to define and devise the cures for the conditions from which we suffer, and then have that sold back to us at the most expensive rates. Follow where the money's coming from. How did Purdue Pharma, which sold opioids to prescribers and doctors around this country, saying that they were addiction-free, some kind of miracle drug, 70,000 drug overdose deaths just last year in this country. We're putting people behind bars, primarily of color, for possession of marijuana, and not one executive from Purdue Pharma has done a night in jail or paid any meaningful price for the devastation and the death that they are in part to blame for. So yes, let's not only get big money out of our politics, prohibit members of Congress from taking political action committee contributions and checks, bar lobbyists from being able to contribute to the campaigns of those that they will be before arguing for policy, but let us together help to finance the campaigns of people who are willing to raise money, grassroots, $5, $10, $15 at a time. So yes, let's do that. That can be part of the solution. Thank you.
Okay, we're to your right. Over here to your right. Sorry. Right. Over here in front. Keep going down. Down more to the back of the room. To the back. Okay, freeze. Or to your left. Over here.
You gotta give me a little bit more depth in the answer.
My name is Antoinette Nascimento from Alameda, California. And I remember from high school being told that the most important political position in this country, according to Thomas Jefferson, is that of an informed citizen. And one of the biggest complaints I've had with all of what's been going on is that, back in '83, we had like 50 media companies. And now we only got 6 controlling 90% of the news. And I know that the fairness doctrine was weakened to the point where it was totally useless. But I feel as though the other side will pretty much just lay in wait until everybody forgets and then go back to their shenanigans. And I was wondering, what do you have in mind, or where do you stand as far as reinstating a new, updated fairness doctrine that includes cable TV and, bringing on the internet?
Thank you. What a great question, and what a reminder that, to begin with, to be clear, given the fact that the most powerful person on the planet has said the contrary, the press are the best defense against tyranny. We need them to have an informed citizenry, an informed electorate, and have people who reflect our interests holding positions of public trust. You asked a question at a time that the line between press and media and those who serve in this administration and occupy the Oval Office has been blurred. Is Fox News an arm of the Republican Party and this administration? You have members of the organization moving into the White House. You have the White House with free reign almost over what is broadcast over one of the most widely watched cable networks in the country today. To protect our democracy, this extraordinary engine to release the ingenuity and genius of a people in the face of challenges like climate change, we all have to be operating from the same set of facts. Your opinions are your own. Come to whatever conclusion you wish to, but let's make sure that we have the same information and that we understand who's funding the information that is coming our way. So, and then just to add one more challenge to everything that we just described. In 2016, a foreign power used our information channels, including Facebook, to manipulate public opinion and change the outcome of an election, invited by the person who's now the President of the United States to do that. I don't know if collusion is a term of art in the law, but he certainly invited their participation and then sought to obstruct the investigation into what has happened and has yet to acknowledge that we were under attack in 2016, 2018, and will be in 2020. So yes, let's make sure that Fox News, Facebook, Twitter, every channel through which we receive information about those like me who ask for our votes, or those like him who hold these positions of public trust, are held accountable. In our laws, we need to make those distinctions much more clear than they are today. The reporting, the transparency, the sunshine, so that you can make informed decisions about where your news comes from and what your lawmakers are doing in your name, all that is essential for this democracy to continue to function. Thank you for asking the question and for bringing this up. Really important.
All right, I'm back by the cameras.
I see you.
All right, here we go. And I'm really sorry, I know there's so many hands up. I wish I could get to everybody, but I only have time for these last two right here.
Hi, my name is Christopher Johnigan, and I'm from Hayward, California. My question has to do with, well, under the previous administration, Obama, with Attorney General Eric Holder, they seem to be doing everything they could to try and increase oversight of troublesome police departments. But now the consent decrees, in order to for that oversight of police departments, have been rolled back. First with President Trump, with the now departed Attorney General Jeff Sessions. I mean, police should be treated with respect, but at the same time, they should not be allowed to do whatever they want by saying he reached for his waistband or I thought he had a gun. So I just want to know what would you, as president, what would you do to make sure that law enforcement would treat poor communities, black communities with respect?
Yeah. Thank you for your comments. And so appreciate the question and the way in which you asked it, the acknowledgement that sheriff's deputies, police officers have very tough, very important jobs for which we give them our thanks. But the jobs are so important, the trust they hold so sacred, that when that is violated, there must be consequences, there must be accountability, and there must be justice. No person, regardless of who they are or the badge that they wear, is above or below the law in this country. The federal government has the opportunity through the money that it spends with municipal and county police and sheriff's departments to ensure that there is accountability and transparency for use of force and against whom force is used. You mentioned our civil rights mandates through the Department of Justice that President Obama perhaps did not use to their full effect and effort, and President Trump has completely turned his back on. When you add to that a war on drugs, now approaching its 50th year, that has become a war on people, some people more than others, and I talked about who is disproportionately locked up in this country right now. And it is disproportionately people of color, and it's not just a function of policing or our court system, although we need to address that. It's also our school system. At 4 or 5 years old, in a kindergarten classroom, a child of color is 5 times as likely to be disciplined or suspended or expelled as a white kid. That schoolhouse to jailhouse pipeline begins not in high school, but in kindergarten. You cannot be more vulnerable than you are as a 4 or 5-year-old. And you're doing it for another. I mentioned the maternal mortality crisis in this country. 3 times as bad for women of color. There is a disparity in infant mortality in the United States today, in the year 2019, that is greater between white America and black America in this year than it was in 1850, 15 years before the abolition of slavery. There is 10 times the wealth in white America today than there is in black America, although we could argue, and this would be true, that the ancestors of many people in this country who are people of color, built the wealth of this country in the first place. There's no prospect of being able to enjoy it. So whether it's healthcare, whether it's our educational system, whether it's our criminal justice system, this country fundamentally, structurally, has been set up to favor some against others. And until we address this holistically, stare squarely in the face the consequences of slavery and segregation and Jim Crow and the continuing suppression that we see everywhere in this country, we will not get to the underlying issue that you describe, unarmed black men being killed in this country far too often with impunity and without justice. So we must do it all, but we can start where you asked us to, and I will. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Same area, same spot. This is our last question.
Hi Peter, my name is Anil and I live in Palo Alto, California. And you know, I'm a brown guy living in Northern California. It's easy to see all the issues that I would care about, whether it's sustainable development, inclusive growth, environment, guns, all of that fun stuff. Right? And yet, nobody's going to get anything done after this election if we don't appeal to a broader mass of people and cut across lines. Every word that you said today has the risk of being received by other voters, not like me, through the twisted filters of right-wing media. How are you going to cut through that clutter and cut through that narrative to actually reach other voters? You've shown the ability. You've shown the ability to reach the other side in Texas, but it's going to be a really hard challenge. What's the plan for that?
Thank you for asking the question. Let me just begin in the most personal of terms. My mom is a lifelong Republican, and we got her to vote for me in this last election. So I know there's cause for optimism. I know that we can do this. You know, I mentioned going to every one of the 254 counties of Texas, and we went not just to say that we went to every one of the 254 counties of Texas, but just as I said at the outset of this meeting, I have no hope of being able to serve you if I've not first heard you and listened to you and sought to understand you. And so going to a place like King County, county seat is Guthrie, Texas. Voted for Donald Trump 96% in the last election. Yet every bit is deserving of being heard, of being listened to, of being fought for, of being served. So we showed up, and guess what? Guthrie is one of the 50 water systems in the state of Texas where you cannot drink the water. If I had not shown up there, then they would not have known that I cared about their problems, and that I wanted to find a solution for them as their senator. And look, we may have picked up a total of 2 or 3 votes in Guthrie, Texas with that visit. But it made me a better candidate, it made me a better public servant going forward. We have so much in common. If we choose not to write each other off or take each other for granted, I really think there's no stopping us. Henrietta, Texas, another one of these conservative towns. This Republican family sitting, enjoying their cinnamon roll and coffee on a Sunday morning, recognized me because I've been in Wichita Falls the night before, and they'd seen me on the news and said, hey, sit down, tell us what you're all about. And the dad says, look, I'm really concerned about Obamacare. In fact, I'm really pissed off about Obamacare. Cannot afford the premiums that we're paying right now. So I want you to do something about it, but I do not want you to repeal it, because before Obamacare, we had no health care at all. And so we had this conversation about how can we improve what we have right now. And before I could finish my thought to him, his wife kind of elbows me. She's a public school teacher. And in Texas, public school teachers and educators and cafeteria workers and counselors and librarians and school bus drivers, on average, are working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. On average, are taking out of their pockets nearly $1,000 to pay for school supplies and that dinner for the kid on free and reduced breakfast and lunch who does not have a meal to go home to, buys a new set of clothes for the kid who's shown up in the same jeans and t-shirt Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, by Thursday, knowing that that kid's ability to learn is connected to his sense of self-worth and dignity. Out of her own pocket, though she's not paid enough, buys him a new set of clothes. And so she's one of those school teachers. She's a Republican. And she says to me, Beto, listen, look at me. If you let Betsy DeVos take my hard-earned tax dollars out of my public school classroom, turn them into a voucher, send them to a private school, I will hunt you down. I I will get you. And so maybe we found some common cause by sitting together eating that sweet roll in Henrietta, Texas. That's the same way that I've been campaigning all across the country so far. Going everywhere, never asking your partisan affiliation, your immigration status, whether you can even vote. You know, you may have a conviction, you may still be on parole. I don't care. You're my fellow American. I want to find out how we're going to work together. So, I'm going to make this work. We're going to show up to listen and learn, ultimately the courage of our convictions, and we're going to meet these challenges for one another and for the next generation. Thank you all.
Thank you, Beto!